welcome back to Ozzy's Oddities. Today I'd like to talk to you about my Maytag fruit jar engine. And I've got a story to tell about this engine. It goes something like this. Back in the 60s, when I started collecting engines, or I got interested in them in the 60s, my dad took me to a threshing show. And I saw all kinds of stationary engines, hit and miss engines, throttling governed engines. Anyway, my dad was explaining them to me, and I talked with some of the collectors, and I really got interested. And I thought, boy, I'm going to collect engines. Well, I saw big engines and little engines and model engines, and I saw everything under the sun. And I thought, you know, one thing these guys never talk about is the Maytag washing machine engine. And I found out that some of the collectors didn't even consider them engines. They were just old washing machines. But that's not true. The Maytag engine was very important in our history. And after studying and doing a little research, I found out that not only did that washing machine wash clothes, but it churned butter and it ground sausage and made ice cream in it. And you know, they also use these engines to run grinders and small implements on the farm, like corn shellers and that little pump jacks and so forth. But anyway, I decided they're not so bad. I should pick one up. So I looked around and I finally found one. It was a twin-cylinder Maytag. I think it was called a Model 72. Well, I didn't know much about them. I did a little research on it, and I took it all apart, cleaned it all up, actually got it running. And you know what? It ran pretty good. Pretty smooth running engine. And I thought, that's pretty neat. A twin-cylinder Maytag engine. And then I remember I seen the single-cylinder Model 92. Well, that was back in the 70s. I got the twin-cylinder, and they seemed to be all over. You could get twin-cylinders like nobody wanted them. I don't know what the deal was. Anyway, I wanted a Model 92. Well, I kept searching and searching and searching, and finally, I never did find one. So, I don't know. My interest back then, I got into almost into the 90s now, and then my interest kind of lagged on the engines, and I kind of put them in the shed, and I turned my interest to what my wife calls another one of my bad habits of collecting tractors. So I started collecting tractors, and I didn't pay much attention to the engines, and they went in storage. And well, I devoted all my time to tractors. And one time I was working with a buddy on a tractor, helping him fix it, and we were at this guy's shop, and the guy in the shop was talking and saying that he helped the guy fix the tractor, and he got paid with a couple old engines, old wash machine engines. And well, I heard that, didn't pay much attention, but then he started talking. He says, they've been around here for 20 years laying in my shed, I want to get rid of them. And I says, are they single-cylinder wash machine engines? And he says, yeah, they are, he says. Well, I'd be interested in them if you want to sell them. Well, he quoted me a price, and holy cow, I bought them sight unseen, didn't even know what they were. And that was, you know, okay, I bought them, paid them for them, said I'd pick them up when I can. Well, you know what? A couple of years went by, and the wife says, maybe we should get those engines you bought. So we went and got them. And there they were, laying in the pole shed, in the dirt floor there. They didn't look like engines to me. I thought there was parts missing and everything else. But I did recognize the flywheel, and the one was a Maytag, so I could tell that flywheel, they were pretty common looking. So that tipped me off, but it looked like there was parts missing. It just didn't look like anything I'd ever seen. So we took them home, and they laid around for another year while I didn't know what to do with them. So then I decided to take my engines to a local threshing show. I had my trailer load of stationary engines. So I got them running, and I took them to the show, and I thought, well, as long as I'm going to this show, I might as well throw these two boat anchors I got, throw them on there and see if anybody had any interest or could tell me anything about them. Or maybe somebody wants to buy them. I don't know. I don't need them. Anyway, I got to the showgrounds, parked my trailer of engines. I leave them right on the trailer to run. Parked in my trailer with the pickup hooked on, and then I started getting the engine to display ready, and I threw those two boat anchors over the side of the trailer on the ground, And then I went and got water for my engines. The water-cooled engines had the hoppers on there. So I took my Model T watering can, and about a block away there was a hydrant. Filled up with water, started walking back to the engines, and I'm looking at and there's a crowd of people around my trailer, and I thought, oh, now what did I do? Did I take somebody's space? Did I run somebody's engine over? Oh, God forbid there's somebody underneath my trailer. Well, as I was approaching my trailer, one of the show officials came over and he says, "You don't know what you have there, do you?" I says, "Yeah, my trailer of engines." "No, those ones on the ground," he says. "You have not only the rarest, but the most coveted Maytag engine they ever made." I thought, whoa, can this be? Well, we started walking towards the trailer, and by the time we got there, most of the crowd had dissipated. And the official told me, "Why don't you take and put those engines away before we got a problem with them?" So I did. I put them under cover in the pickup. And I could only be at the show for one day. And I'm glad it was only one day, because, you know, all those guys that were standing around that trailer, one by one, they came back to my engine display all day long, and they wanted to buy those engines from me. And they all wanted them. They said they were just parts engines. They'd like them for parts. And I said, "No, I better hang on to them." And then by the end of the day, I was so surprised. The offers kept getting bigger and bigger. And by the end of the day, they were unbelievable what they wanted to pay for those parts engines. So then I realized, that guy must be right. I must really have some. And then a visitor to the show who was from Iowa, who was a Maytag collector, told me all about the Maytag engine. He says, "What you have there is a fruit jar engine. What you're missing is the gas tank and some carburetor parts. You're missing the exhaust, the wiring." And sure enough, he says, that is the rarest engine. He says, everybody wants that engine. There's very few of them around. Well, when I got home from that show, I decided maybe I better kind of clean it up and see what I could do with this thing. Well, it needed a flywheel, because the flywheel had laid in somebody's basement for years and years and years, and actually it was half gone. The ground corroded. They're only pot metal, aluminum, whatever it is, I'm not sure, but it was eaten up. And lo and behold, the part that was eaten was the part that had the serial number on it. So we don't even know, for sure which one it was. But, the guy from Iowa told me that they made these engines just for 2 years. They made them in 1918, and they discontinued them in 1919. They had caused so much problem because, the gas tank, being a fruit jar, just clips onto the engine, and it's glass, of course, and you put gas in there, and then you got to put it into this pot on the engine. Now you're slobbering this gas all over the place, and you got it. This tube coming out here is your exhaust tube, and the exhaust came out here. They didn't have these tubes on them. They just had a little muffler on here when they first came out, I was told. And the heat from that would crack these jars, or the vibration of the engine would crack a jar. And if it did, your gas is going to spill out. If the gas spills out on a hot engine, you know what happens? You're going to have a fire. These engines were burning down so many houses that they decided to discontinue making them. They thought they could correct it by putting a hose attachment on it, and then they run the hose out. In the wintertime, most of your clothes was washed in the house, in the washing machine, the Maytag washing machine with the motor underneath. And the exhaust, you couldn't have it in the house, so they ran this pipe out a window, a little muffler on the end, and they thought that would cure it. Well, it didn't cure it. They recalled what they could. They discontinued making it. Some of them didn't get recalled, though. This one was down in somebody's basement, and luckily I got a hold of it. Well, I went and cleaned it all up. Some of these gas tanks actually had a little valve in them. A little valve that gets so much, and the valve would shut off. Gas gets so high in the pot. And some of them just had a hole in, like mine just got a hole in it because I don't have a valve. And Anyway, my wife furnished me the gas tank from her canning supplies. And I made the cart for it. It's just a skid for it to sit on. And I painted the name on it. The wood came from my father-in-law's farm. It's oak. And when I was cleaning this thing up, down in the corner under the grease and rust, I found it looked like a royal blue paint. So at one time they must have been painted blue, and I'm not sure about that because some of them might have been green, but I know this one had blue paint on it. I should tell you that when I took this engine, when I had it all cleaned up, I took it to shows to display it, and the first thing they did was come and tell me not to run it because of the danger of the fire and everything. They didn't even want it running at the shows. I thought that was a little different, but it didn't bother me because they hadn't had it running anyway. So the first thing I had to do was after I cleaned it up, was make this adjustment rod for the carburetor so you could adjust it while standing up by the wash machine. I went through the carburetor completely, cleaned it all up. I cleaned this petcock up, the drain for the gas tank. Cleaned that all up, and it's not in bad shape. I did get a flywheel, another flywheel from another engine. And again, I don't know the serial numbers of this engine because there was 8 up, but the flywheels are interchangeable, which is really neat. The Maytag made a lot of interchangeable parts for all their engines, and that was really good. I don't know how to start it. I never had it running. I don't even know, there's no Kickstarter on it, so you must have to wrap a cord around it or something, or pull it, start it by the flywheel. But I can't imagine them doing that if it's sitting underneath a washing machine. Now I kind of went through it. This is still the original plug that I got with it. So I didn't even test it out to see if it's good yet. I'll have to do that yet. But I did, there's a valve down in there. A deflooding valve, deflutter valve, whatever they call it, I don't know. And that was gummed up and stuck tight. So I cleaned that all up, cleaned everything up best I could. The cylinder was very tight on the connecting rod. That was very good. I was very pleased with that. The only thing I found broken on the whole engine was a little piece on the air right on the end. Somebody must have dropped it or threw it in the shed or something. Just a little hunk out of the fin here. That's the only piece missing on the whole engine. And it's not that bad. It has a belt pulley on it here for the belt to run the wash machine. And I still don't know how to start. If anybody has any ideas, boy, tell me about this engine, because I really don't know anything about it. I never had it running. My goal is to get it running. I don't know when I'll get it running. I think I got to have more information on it. But I just think it's just so neat. Take a look at here. Down in here, the whole thing is hollow down here, the gas tank. And that's where the fruit jar, and when you tip this fruit jar upside down, of course you're spilling this gas all over the place, and you get it in there, it all drains down into that engine until it hits the level of the bottom of the cover of the fruit jar. It seeks its own level. It's the weirdest thing I've ever seen. But I guess it worked until it burned houses down. We're going to get it running, hopefully, and I'll bring it back onto the YouTube again. It's just a fascinating engine. The question is, how do you start it? Did they reach under their wash machine and turn the flywheel? Or did they put a rope someplace on a pulley? How did they start it? I don't know. Well, that's the Maytag fruit jar engine, everybody. I just wanted to tell you the story, how I got it, and how in the dark I am about it, because I don't know a whole lot about it. So if anybody has any information on it, please let me know. So much for the Maytag fruit jar engine on the Ozzy's Oddities. We'll see you all again. Thanks for watching, everybody.